You ever wish you could get everything back and just be normal again? That's how I'm starting this. Not because I'm dramatic, but because it's the only truth I have left. My name is T. That's not my real name, but it's the one I'm using. Because if anything out there is still listening, I'm not letting it track me again. A year ago, my family and I moved into a small, quiet town, population 7,000. One of those places with a single diner, a school that still had chalkboards, and neighbors who waved at you even if they didn't know your name. Felt perfect, felt safe, felt normal. I didn't know that normal was the first thing the town would take from me. Now I'm the only survivor, and I'm sending this to YouTube, Reddit, Twitter, anywhere someone might still be alive to hear me, because I don't want what happened to my town to happen to you. I'm going to explain everything, but before I do, if you're watching this, do not go near that town. Don't look for it. Don't try to help. Don't try to be a hero. Some places don't want you to leave. Some places don't want you alive. And this town, it wasn't empty. It wasn't abandoned. It was waiting. People think the scariest part is the night. But in my town, the daylight was worse, because that's when everything pretended to be normal. When we first moved in, nothing felt wrong. The neighbors brought pies. The mailman knew our names by the second day. Kids rode their bikes down the street like they were stuck in a postcard. Mom kept saying it was the peaceful restart we needed. Dad kept saying small towns were safer. And me, I was just glad to finally have a place where nobody asked questions. For the first week, it really felt like life was giving us a break. We unpacked slowly, room by room. Dad fixed the squeaky back door. Mom argued with the old oven. I spent hours outside on the porch just listening to the wind move through the trees. Everything was calm. Everything was quiet. Too quiet. Not in a horror movie way. More like a quiet that felt forced, like the whole town was holding its breath at the same time. But at the time, I told myself it was just me overthinking. Small towns were supposed to feel slow. They were supposed to feel empty on weekdays. They were supposed to feel peaceful, right? And then came the smiles. Not creepy smiles. Not monster smiles. Just smiles that lasted a little too long. The barista at the cafe held her smile even after she handed me my drink. The cashier at the grocery store smiled the entire time we checked out. The old man across the street, I never once saw him frown, blink, or even adjust his expression. Small town friendliness. That's what Mom called it. But something deep inside me whispered, no one smiles like that. Not that long. Not all the time. Still, nothing bad happened. No screams. No missing posters. No weird noises at night. Just a happy little town living its happy little life. And me, trying to ignore the feeling that the happiness didn't belong to us. It belonged to the town. I started noticing it more the second week. The smiles. Not the normal friendly ones, but those other ones. The smiles that didn't look like they belonged to the person wearing them. Like they were being held up by something else. Their eyes didn't match. Their cheeks didn't move right. Their lips stretched a little too far, like skin being pulled by invisible hands. But they kept smiling. At us. At everyone. And nothing. One afternoon, I was walking home from the small grocery store when a voice came from behind me. Yo, you good? I turned and saw a guy leaning against the side of a convenience store. Early 20s, hoodie, messy hair, normal expression. Actually normal. No stretched grin. No frozen eyes. He looked like someone who didn't belong here. T, right? He asked. I nodded. Yeah. How'd you know? He shrugged. Town's small. New people stand out. You look uncomfortable. I hesitated, but something told me he wasn't dangerous. So I asked him the question that had been chewing at my mind. Why do they smile like that? John's face instantly changed. Not into a smile, but into fear. Real fear. He looked left. He looked right. Then he stepped closer and lowered his voice. Don't ask that. Not out here. My skin prickled. Why? What's wrong with them? John swallowed, eyes scanning the street again as a woman with a stiff, stretched grin walked past us, her head twitching slightly like she was fighting to look away but couldn't. "They're listening," he whispered, "to everything." I stared at him. "What do you mean? Listening how?" He didn't answer at first. He just stared at the woman until she disappeared around the corner. Then, without smiling, he leaned in so close I could feel his breath on my ear. "Just blend in," John murmured. "That's the only way you stay alive here." He pulled back, his face pale. "And don't let them see you stop smiling." After John whispered that warning, he didn't give me a chance to ask more. He just turned, shoved his hands into his pockets, and walked away fast. Too fast for someone who claimed to blend in. I stood there alone on the sidewalk, trying to process what he said. Don't let them see you stop smiling. I wasn't a good actor. My face felt frozen, heavy, unsure of what it was supposed to do. But I tried. I forced the corners of my mouth up, feeling them tremble as I held the fakest smile of my life. And that's when I heard footsteps behind me. Slow, dragging, too close. I didn't want to turn around, but I did, just a little, just enough to see her. An old woman, gray hair, wrinkled face, and that smile, that impossible, stretched to breaking smile that didn't fit the shape of her skull. She leaned forward like her bones didn't bend right, her neck tilting at an angle that made my stomach twist. "Why the frown, dear?" she croaked. My heart almost exploded. I hadn't dropped my smile, at least I didn't feel like I did. But she said it like she knew something slipped. I'm not frowning," I stammered, trying to stretch my lips even wider. Her head twitched sharply, the smile growing farther than any human face should allow. No, you were," she said, voice syrupy and wrong. "In this town, we don't frown." Her eyes didn't blink. They didn't even shine. They were just there, staring straight through me. I kept my smile up, even though my jaw felt like it was tearing. "I'm just tired," I said, forcing a small laugh. The woman's grin froze tighter. Then she leaned in so close I could smell her breath, cold, like old cellar air. "Tired people forget," she whispered. "That's when accidents happen." I swallowed, nodding, smiling so hard my cheeks burned. She stepped back slowly, mechanically, still staring at me, still smiling. Then she walked away without breaking eye contact, her head turning unnaturally far as her body moved in the opposite direction. I didn't breathe again until she was gone. And somewhere behind me, I heard a voice, John's voice, whispering from a nearby alley. "See? I told you. Keep smiling, or they'll make sure you never stop." That night, I didn't sleep. Every time I shut my eyes, I saw that old woman's face, stretched, twitching, smiling like someone had carved a grin into her skin and pulled the strings tight. I stayed in my room with the curtains half closed, the lamp on, and every muscle in my face still tired from holding that fake smile. Mom and Dad were asleep already, or at least I hoped they were, because around 12:47 a.m., something happened outside. Something wrong. It started with footsteps, slow, dragging, multiple. I crept to the window and pulled the curtain just enough to peek through. The street was dark and empty at first, and then, as if stepping out of the fog itself, shapes appeared. Not people, not exactly. They were taller than they should have been, thinner than shadows, bent in ways that looked like bones had melted and reformed wrong. But the worst part? They talked, not in monster voices, not in screeches or growls. They talked like people. I pressed my ear to the window, heart hammering. A man's voice drifted up the street. "Beautiful night, isn't it?" Another voice, high, cheerful, broken at the edges. Yes, so nice to stretch the legs." A third voice, childlike and flat. "They didn't smile today. I saw them. My breath froze. These things were speaking like neighbors having a casual conversation. But the words didn't match the tone, like a human sentence pushed through a throat that didn't understand how emotion worked. One of them stopped moving. It lifted its head into the air, sniffing like an animal. Then it said, in a voice that sounded far too human, Someone's awake. My hand jerked away from the curtain. The thing turned its head, too fast, too sharp, directly toward my house. Then another one spoke, right beside it, inside, watching. I staggered back from the window, heart slamming so hard it hurt. I didn't hear footsteps on the sidewalk anymore. They were closer, on my lawn, right outside the door, moving around the house in slow circles, whispering, mimicking, repeating sentences like they were practicing being human. Hello, good evening. Why the frown? We don't frown here. Smile for us. Mom's voice came from behind the bedroom door. T, are you okay? But something was wrong with the way she said it. Too soft, too smooth, too practiced, like she was repeating a line she'd been given. I didn't answer. I didn't move. And the last whisper outside the window was so close it felt like it was right in my ear. Someone isn't smiling. Mom's voice on the other side of my bedroom door didn't sound like Mom. It had the shape of her words, the rhythm of her breathing, the softness she always used when I was scared. But something was missing. Emotion. Real emotion. T, honey, are you awake? She spoke again, slower this time, like she was testing every syllable before letting it leave her mouth. I didn't answer, not after what I heard outside. Not after hearing those things copy the townspeople like they were trying on personalities like clothes. Something scraped down the length of the hallway. Soft, deliberate. Mom never dragged her feet like that. The house felt too still, too full of breath that wasn't mine. I backed away from the door until my legs hit the bed frame. Then, knock, knock, knock. 3 slow knocks spaced too perfectly apart. T, open the door, Mom said. Except, it wasn't a request. It sounded like a command. I forced myself not to cry. Mom, I whispered. What's wrong? Silence. Then a voice too calm to be real. Nothing's wrong. Smile for me. My blood turned to ice. That wasn't Mom. Not anymore. Outside, footsteps shuffled across the porch. Multiple voices echoed in broken harmony. Inside, they're waiting. Open, open, open. The front door creaked. Something had come in. Dad's voice boomed suddenly. Panicked. Real. Get back. Get away from her. A heavy thud shook the floor. Then another. Then a scream that wasn't human. I threw myself against the bedroom door. Dad. M.O.M. Something slammed into the wall. A body. Then the sound of bones, real bones, cracking like wet branches. Mom shrieked, but her voice warped halfway through, bending upward into a sound that didn't belong in a human throat. Dad roared again, louder, desperate. T, stay in your room. I heard the sound of something tearing, something wet hitting the wall, something dragging across the floor. Dad's voice cut off instantly, like something had pulled the air out of him. Then Mom's voice, except not hers anymore, came from somewhere too close to the ground. Honey, don't cry. Something heavy thumped against my door, slowly sliding down it, leaving a smear, a wet one, a dark red one. Smile for me. The whisper rose, choking, bubbling with something thick. That's when I realized Mom wasn't standing anymore. She was crawling, and whatever was left of Dad was being dragged away by something still hungry. I don't know how long I stayed pressed against the door. Minutes, hours. Time didn't feel real anymore. My heart was pounding so hard I felt it shaking the floorboards. The house was silent, the wrong kind of silent. Not peaceful, not safe, empty. Then suddenly, a knock. Not violent, not angry, just gentle. T, sweetheart, are you awake? My blood froze. It was Mom's voice again, except this time it sounded perfect. Too perfect. Warm, steady, smooth, like nothing had happened at all. I didn't move. Your father and I heard you up, she continued. You're not scared, are you? Something in her tone made my stomach twist. Not the words, but the shape of them. like her mouth was too tight around each syllable. Then Dad spoke. He opened the door. Everything's fine. We're fine. His voice sounded normal too. Too normal. No pain. No fear. Not a single wobble in his breath. But I had heard the screams. I had heard the bones break. I had heard something drag him across the floor. So how were they talking to me casually? Like it was just another night? I wiped my eyes with shaking hands. T, please open the door, Mom said softly. You're worrying us. I didn't want to. Every instinct screamed at me to stay locked inside. But something else whispered louder. Don't let them see you frown. I forced the corners of my mouth up. My cheeks burned with exhaustion. Slowly, painfully, I unlocked the door, creaked open, and there they were, Mom, Dad, standing side by side in the hallway, smiling, not too wide, not too stretched, just perfect. Their clothes weren't torn. Their hair wasn't messy. No bruises, no blood, nothing, like nothing had happened. Dad rested a hand on my shoulder. You need sleep, he whispered, smile never weakening. Mom nodded, her smile identical to his, the same angle, the same stillness, like they'd rehearsed it. Rest now, honey, she said. We'll see you in the morning. I didn't trust them, but they looked normal, acted normal, smiled normal. So I nodded, smiled back, and went to bed. I kept my eyes closed tight, pretending to fall asleep. But just before I drifted off, I heard footsteps stop outside my door. Then a whisper from both their voices at once. Good boy. I woke up the next morning with my jaw aching from smiling in my sleep. I didn't remember falling asleep. I didn't remember dreaming. I didn't remember choosing to rest at all. But I woke up smiling, automatically, like a reflex I hadn't learned. Mom was at the kitchen counter when I came downstairs. Dad was tying his shoes near the door, both smiling, perfectly, too perfectly. Their smiles didn't twitch, didn't fade, didn't move, just stayed carved into their faces like they'd been glued there. Breakfast is ready, sweetheart, Mom said in that soft, smooth voice again. No cracks, no emotion, just perfect. I didn't sit, couldn't eat. I just grabbed my backpack. Dad stepped closer, adjusting the strap on my shoulder. School's important, he said. Routine keeps us human. There was something in the word human that didn't sit right, like he forced it through teeth that weren't his. But I nodded, smiled, not too big, not too small, just right, and walked out the door. The town looked different in daylight now. Before it was peaceful, charming, quiet. Now it felt staged, like the whole place was posing for a picture and didn't know when the camera would click. The neighbors waved their perfect waves. The mailman smiled his perfect smile. The woman walking her dog didn't blink the entire time she watched me pass. And the dog wasn't breathing at all, just staring with its jaw slightly open, teeth too long for its mouth, tongue hanging like it didn't know how to move it. I kept walking, kept smiling, kept pretending I didn't notice every single thing that was wrong. School looked normal too. Kids laughing, teachers greeting students at the door, posters on the walls about field trips and homework. Normal, except the laughter didn't sound like laughter. It sounded like something copying laughter. Soft, wrong, recycled, like they'd heard a human laugh once and were trying to repeat it. My classroom was full, 25 students, all smiling, all staring when I walked in, not whispering, not talking, not shifting, just staring. Their smiles held too long, their heads tilted too far, their eyes a little too wide. I swallowed, sat down at my desk, forced my own smile. The teacher, Mrs. Holbrook, walked in. She was always a cheerful woman, but today her cheerfulness felt like a mask stretched too thin. Good morning, class, she said, her voice sharp and smooth. In perfect unison, the whole class answered. Good morning, Mrs. Holbrook. No variation, no difference in pitch, no personality, just one voice split into 25 mouths. Mrs. Holbrook turned to me. Her smile didn't shift, Her eyes didn't blink. T. We're happy you're fitting in. I didn't answer. Not fast enough. Not correctly. Her head tilted. A little too far. T. She said slowly. You are fitting in, aren't you? I forced my smile wider. Yes, I love it here. Her face relaxed back into place. Good, she whispered, because once you belong to the town belongs to you. The bell rang, echoing down the silent hallway like it didn't belong in this world anymore. But no one moved. Every student in that classroom sat with their backs straight, hands folded, eyes fixed forward with those stretched, unnatural smiles. Like someone carved the expression onto their faces and told them not to blink. I tried not to stare, tried to look normal, but even breathing felt like I was being watched. John leaned slightly toward me without turning his head. Don't react, he whispered. They notice every little thing. I swallowed hard. What are they? I whispered back. He didn't answer. He just kept staring straight ahead like if he looked anywhere else, something behind him would open its eyes. The teacher finally moved, her neck cracking sharply as she turned to face us. Her smile twitched, almost a glitch, like a bad animation. Then her voice came out too smooth. Good morning, class. Let's begin today's review. She held up a piece of chalk. Her fingers bent around it wrong, too far, joints bending in directions they shouldn't. The chalk snapped in half. A few students giggled softly, but the laughter wasn't human. It was too synced, too hollow, too rehearsed. My skin crawled. She wrote a sentence on the board. Smile like you mean it. The whole class whispered it back in unison. A whisper that felt like air was being sucked out of the room. Smile like you mean it. John nudged me again. Try, even if it feels fake. So I did. I forced the smallest smile I could manage. But the girl sitting 2 rows ahead slowly twisted around, her eyes boring into mine, her face stretching into a smile so wide the corners tore, just a little dark red staining her skin. She stared at my weak little smile and whispered, "Not enough." My heart stopped. John suddenly dropped his pencil. It clattered loudly on the floor, a normal sound, but it made every head in the room snap toward him. The teacher tilted her head, bones cracking like branches. John spoke before she could. Sorry, just clumsy. A pause. Too long. Then she nodded once, stiffly, and turned back to the board. John exhaled shakily and whispered to me, "Listen, when lunch comes, don't go where they go. Go to the old gym. Meet me there." "Why?" I whispered. His voice was barely audible. "Because after lunch, they don't pretend anymore." My blood turned cold. The bell finally rang again, but instead of moving like normal people, every student stood up at the exact same second, their smiles stretching even wider as they turned toward the hallway, like puppets pulled by the same invisible strings. And as they filed out, that girl who tore her smile didn't take her eyes off me. Not once. Not until she whispered, "New faces don't last long here." The hallway was worse than the classroom. Every student walked the same speed, same posture, same rhythm. Their synchronized footsteps echoed through the school like a single creature wearing hundreds of bodies. John walked a few feet ahead of me, pretending not to know me, but every few seconds he glanced back just enough for me to know. Hurry, don't fall behind, don't stand out. I forced a smile the whole time. My jaw ached, my cheeks felt like stone. But no one broke formation, no one talked, just the endless clicking of shoes and the stretching of forced smiles. The hall branched into 2 directions. A left cafeteria, right old gym, the one John told me to go to. All the students turned left in perfect unison. Every single one. John slowed until he was beside me for half a second, just long enough to whisper, "Don't follow them, they eat wrong." Then he kept walking with the rest, blending back in without hesitation. I stepped to the right toward the gym doors. A few heads turned toward me. Their necks creaked, their smiles widened. My stomach dropped, but they didn't say anything. They just smiled and kept walking, I slipped inside and closed the door behind me as quietly as possible. Dust floated through the air. Broken bleachers. Old mats that smelled like mold. It was quiet. Too quiet. I leaned against the wall, finally letting my smile drop, and immediately, thump, 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 something hit the gym doors from the other side. Not like fists, more like heads. I stared at the doors, frozen, as the thumping grew heavier and slower and more deliberate. Then a voice whispered through the crack under the door. "Why aren't you eating with the rest of us, T?" My blood iced. A second voice chimed in, breathy and stretched. "You're new. New ones always taste better." I stepped back from the door, pulse shaking the air around me. Then John's voice hissed from behind the bleachers. "T over here. Now." I sprinted toward him and slid behind the old wooden seats. John pulled me down beside him, eyes wide with panic. "You didn't run," he whispered. "Good. What's happening?" I asked, voice shaking. He swallowed hard. "At lunch," he said. "They feed, not like humans, not like anything living should." The thumping at the door stopped. Silence. Then a scraping sound, like something dragging itself across the floor outside. John's whisper trembled. "And if they notice you skipped their meal, they'll make you the next one." John grabbed my sleeve so tight his fingers shook. "They're going to notice we're missing," he whispered. "We need to get to the cafeteria before they come looking." "John," I started. He cut me off with a shaking head. "Trust me, it's safer to walk in late than to not walk in at all." That sentence alone made my stomach twist. He stood, dusted himself off, forced a smile, and nodded at me to do the same. I didn't want to go anywhere near that cafeteria, but staying hidden wasn't an option. So we walked, slow, casual, like nothing was wrong, but my hands wouldn't stop trembling. The hallway was silent, completely empty. All the students were already inside the cafeteria. No movement, no whispers, no footsteps, just a hum, a low vibrating hum, leaking from behind the cafeteria doors, like something enormous breathing. John hesitated, his forced smile turning stiff. "They're already eating," he whispered. "Stay close. Don't look directly at anyone. Don't react." I nodded, even though I wanted to run, scream, break every window in this cursed school and sprint until my lungs burst. But I didn't, because if the things in that cafeteria heard me run, they'd chase me. John pushed the door, creaked, and the moment it opened, a smell hit me. Not rotten, not metallic, not like food. Something wet, something warm, something alive. The cafeteria lights flickered, buzzing like angry insects. And inside, every student was hunched over the tables. But they weren't eating food. They were tangled together. Hands, arms, faces, pressed against each other in impossible shapes. And at the center of each group, something glistened. Something dark red, not quite blood, but close enough to make my throat close. Their smiles were wider now, stretched to tearing. Some of them didn't even have lips anymore, just teeth, so many teeth. And the hum I heard? It wasn't machines. It was their voices. Like they were savoring something, something that moved. John elbowed me. "Walk," he whispered. We stepped into the room, slow, careful, and then one student stopped eating. He raised his head slowly, his jaw hung open too wide, far too wide, skin stretched thin, red stains dripping from the sides. He stared at me, then smiled. "Tea," he gurgled. "You're late." Every head in the cafeteria turned toward me. Dozens of eyes, dozens of ruined smiles. John whispered one word, "Run," and the cafeteria erupted into shrieks. John didn't even wait for me to react. He grabbed my arm and yanked me down the hall as the cafeteria exploded in screams and footsteps. Not human footsteps. Too many joints. Too fast. Too heavy. They poured out of the cafeteria like a tidal wave of smiling bodies. their limbs bending sideways, their hands dragging along the floor like broken spiders. "This way," John shouted. We sprinted around a corner so fast I almost slipped. The lights flickered violently as shadows stretched down the hallway behind us. I could hear them, wet slapping noises, bones cracking, something laughing. John shoved open the first door he saw, a storage room. We slammed it shut behind us. He locked it. We pressed ourselves against the wall, trying not to breathe too loudly. Outside the door, something scraped across the floor, then another, then a third, sniffing us. I pressed my hands over my mouth, body shaking so hard I thought the door would vibrate with me. After a long minute, the sounds faded. John let out the smallest breath. "We can't go back to class now," he whispered. "We need to get out of the school." But his voice stopped, because the room wasn't empty. Behind the mop bucket, behind old lockers stacked on their side, was a door, half open, and something inside was moving. "John," I whispered, "there's someone in there." "No," he said, grabbing my arm. "Don't, we need to stay hidden." But something instinctive pulled me toward that door, pushed it open, and the world fell out from under me. I knew the smell first. Not death, not blood, something worse, something processed. My mom was on the floor, or what used to be her. Her body was folded wrong, spine bent backwards until her head rested near her ankles. Her face was stretched into a smile so huge the skin of her cheeks had torn open all the way to her ears. Her eyes were gone, just empty, polished holes. And her arms were missing, not ripped off, chewed down clean to the shoulder, bones glossy like something had licked them smooth. My dad was pinned to the wall with what looked like sharpened pieces of the cafeteria tables. His chest was sliced open, ribs peeled back like pages of a book. Something had scooped out everything inside. Clean, neat, intentional. His head hung forward, jaw broken, tongue torn. A pattern was carved across his stomach. A smile, a carved smile. And around him were pieces, chunks of flesh, strings of tendon, human teeth scattered like someone spit them out after biting down too hard. One of the creatures had nested in the corner. The skin peeled off and laid like a blanket. Under it, organ pieces twitched as if still warm. A sound left my mouth. I don't know if it was a scream, a breath, or my soul ripping from my chest. John grabbed me, shoving his hand over my mouth. "Keep quiet," he whispered harshly. But it was too late, because from the ceiling, a face peeled down, upside down, stretched, drooling thick red saliva, a mouth opened too wide, and it whispered, "We saved them a seat. For you." John's hand clamped over my mouth, but the creature had already heard us. Its long, wet grin hung upside down from the ceiling tiles, stretching wider and wider until the tendons around its cheeks snapped, dark red drips falling onto my shoes. Its limbs unfolded from inside the ceiling like a spider peeling out of its skin, elbows bent the wrong way, fingers dragging, bones popping like knuckles cracking underwater. "T," John whispered, barely breathing. "Don't move." But the creature dropped, not with a thud, with a sickening wet slap that echoed across the room. Close, its smile wasn't just wrong, it was carved, shredded, forced, like someone tried to cut a human face into something that wasn't human at all. Tilted its head, inspecting me, inhaling. "You smell like them?" It gurgled, voice bubbling through torn vocal cords. "Mom, Dad, family fits, family matches." It crept forward, its joints bending sideways as it crawled over the scattered remains of my parents. Pieces of them stuck to its hands. John grabbed a broken broomstick from the corner. It wasn't a weapon, just a stick barely solid. But it was all he had. The creature sniffed me again, lowering its face until its teeth brushed my cheek. "You're almost ready," it rasped. Then its jaw unhinged. The skin around its mouth split into 4 pieces like a flower blooming, strings of flesh stretching until they snapped. It lunged, and John stabbed it through the neck. The broomstick jammed in deep, sticking out the other side. The creature shrieked, a metallic, grinding scream that vibrated in my ribs. Its blood sprayed across the room, dark, thick, steaming, not human. It twitched violently, slamming into the wall and knocking over metal shelves. The whole room shook. John pulled me behind the lockers. "Move!" he yelled. The creature ripped the broomstick out of its own throat, skin sloughing off as it turned toward us again. Its voice came out broken, glitching. "FM, Eily, feed." Then it scuttled across the ceiling again, too fast to track, limbs clicking like nails on tile. It circled above us, waiting, hunting. My breath froze. John whispered, "T on my signal, crawl under the sinks. I'll distract it." "No," I whispered. "You'll die." He shook his head sharply. "It wants you, not me." And when the creature dropped again, closer this time, jaws wide, John leapt out from behind the lockers, shouting, "Hey, over here." The creature paused, turned toward him, and in that split second, John mouthed, "Run." John darted out from behind the lockers, waving his arms like a madman. "Hey, ugly, right here." The creature froze mid-crawl, its limbs twitching like broken marionette strings. Then its head snapped toward John, jaws opening with a wet crack. I didn't wait. I dove under the row of old sinks, crawling across sticky tiles smeared with dark red stains I didn't want to identify. The creature screeched, the sound vibrating through the pipes above me. Metal rattled, dust fell. Something slammed into the wall so hard plaster rained onto my back. John yelled again, trying to get its attention. "Come on, come on." A heavy thud, another, then something fast scuttled across the ceiling toward him. I clamped both hands over my mouth. I wanted to run to him. I wanted to grab him and pull him under the sinks with me. But if I moved, if either of us made the wrong noise, we'd end up like my parents. So I stayed hidden, shaking, listening. There was a sharp metallic crash, like a shelf falling over. Then John screamed, "Get off me, get." His voice cut in half by something wet, not slicing, tearing. The creature snarled, bones popping as it pinned him. John's footsteps thrashed, then slipped, then dragged. I squeezed my eyes shut, whispering, I'm sorry. I wasn't brave. I wasn't strong. I was just a scared teenager hiding under a sink while someone saved my life." John gagged, choking, and the creature hissed something in a low, garbled voice. "Who man meat fresh. Not prophecy, not destiny, just a monster hungry for him, hungry for anyone." I shifted my weight, and the metal pipe above me squeaked. Loud, too loud. The creature stopped. The room went dead silent. Then, thud, thud, thud. It crawled down from the wall, limbs bending backwards as it sniffed around, searching for me, searching because I made a noise, not because I mattered, not because I was chosen, just because I slipped. Through the gaps under the sink, I saw John lying on the floor, half conscious, blood pooling under him. His eyes met mine, white, terrified. He mouthed one word, "Go," and the creature turned its head toward the sinks, smiling through broken teeth. It had found me. The creature lay twisted across the floor, twitching as its last breaths rattled out of it. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. The metal shard slipped from my grip, clattering onto the bloody tiles. "T, you okay?" John whispered. He was pale, sweating, but still human. Still John. I ran to him, pulling his arm over my shoulder. "We're getting out of here," I said. "I'm not leaving you." He let out a weak laugh. "Yeah, let's see if the front door still works." We stumbled out of the room, stepping over torn flesh, over stains that used to be people, and into the hallway where the lights flickered like dying fireflies. Every shadow looked like it wanted to move. Every corner felt alive. But no one chased us. Not yet. We pushed through the exit doors, bursting into the cold air outside. The parking lot was empty, silent except for the distant groan of something crawling in the woods. John coughed, wiping his forehead. "You saved me back there," he said, trying to smile. But the smile didn't sit right, not the way his usually did. His lips twitched, like someone else tugged the strings from behind his face. "John," I whispered, "look at me." He did. His eyes were bloodshot, veins darkening. A slow trickle of red leaked from the corner of one eye. "I'm fine," he muttered. But when he blinked, his eyelids trembled violently, like he was fighting something inside him. "We gotta go," he said quickly, "before they come back out, before any of them notice we're gone." We ran across the field behind the school, ducking into the tree line. Branches whipped past our faces as the ground turned to mud. Every few steps, John stumbled. Every few breaths, he winced like something was stabbing inside him. But he kept going. He wanted to live. We both did. Halfway through the woods, John stopped. "T, I can't." He fell to his knees, clutching his stomach, breathing fast. John, get up, come on." He raised his head. His smile twitched again. Wider, then too wide. "T," he whispered, tears spilling down his cheeks. "It's getting inside me. I can feel it crawling up my spine. I don't want to hurt you." His jaw clenched, cracking. Blood trickled from the corner of his mouth. He grabbed my hoodie, pulling me close, whispering with panic burning in his voice. "Leave, now, before I'm one of them." "I'm not leaving you," I said, shaking my head. "You have to," he said. "You can't kill me, T. I know you. I won't let you watch me turn." He shoved me backward, hard. Then something inside him jerked, his back arching, hands clenching into claws. "Gio!" he screamed. His voice changed halfway through the word, warping into a low, vibrating growl. I stumbled back, tears blurring everything, heart tearing in half. "John, please, just fight it." He shook his head violently, blood spraying the leaves. "I can't," he barked. "Run, T, run." So I did. I ran through the trees, tears burning down my face, listening to John's scream behind me, a human scream twisting into something else. I burst out of the woods onto a small highway. A black SUV was parked at the bend. No lights, no markings. The windows were cracked open just an inch. And inside, they were listening. A man in a dark tactical suit held a recorder. John's screams echoed out of it. Every word, every sob we'd said in the forest. Another agent said, "Subject T shows resistance to infection vectors. Possible immunity. Retrieve him alive." The man in the passenger seat stared right at me. "No witnesses leave this perimeter," he said calmly. "Clean the town. Burn everything. Bag the boy." The SUV doors opened at the same time. Hands reached for me, and John's screams went silent behind me. I don't sleep much anymore. Not after what I saw them do to my parents, to John, to the entire town of Holridge. I'm sending this everywhere I can: YouTube, Reddit, Twitter, anything that still lets a nobody like me speak. I know the government is probably watching this the second I hit upload. I know they cleaned the town, burned the bodies, buried the truth. But I'm still here. I'm still trying. I'm still begging someone, anyone, to listen. Because whatever those things were, those smiling puppets wearing human skin like clothes, they didn't die in that town. They weren't contained. If even one walked out after dark, if even one made it past the border, it's over. You hear me? It's over for the entire world. They imitate us perfectly. They talk like us. They pretend to feel. They wait. They watch. And when night falls, they move like shadows in a body they stole. I know people think I'm crazy. I know some of you think this is a joke or creepypasta. But Holridge had 7,000 people. And now it has 0. One town. Gone. Smiling. And nobody official has said a word. So here's my last warning before they shut this account down too. If the smile doesn't reach their eyes, run. If it does reach their eyes, You're already dead. T signing off. For now.